The jungle canopy exploded around Tom Bradley as his cargo ship tore through the thick branches. Metal screamed against wood, and sparks flew in all directions. The stellar wind had been his home for 3 years, carrying supplies between mining colonies on the outer rim. Now it was becoming his tomb. Red warning lights flashed across the cockpit as Tom fought with the controls. The navigation system showed nothing but static. Engine failure had struck without warning while he slept in hyperspace. The emergency systems had dropped him out near this unknown planet, but the landing thrusters were dead too. Tree trunks as wide as buildings rushed past the viewport. Tom gripped the pilot seat and braced for impact. The ship hit the forest floor with a sound like thunder, bouncing twice before sliding to a stop against a massive fallen log. Silence filled the cockpit. Tom's ears rang from the crash. Blood ran down his forehead from where he had hit the control panel. He checked his arms and legs. Everything still worked. The ship groaned around him as metal cooled and settled. Emergency power kept a few lights working. Tom ran through the damage report on his handheld scanner. Main engines destroyed. Communications array torn off during the crash. Food supplies scattered throughout the cargo hold. Water recycler still working, but barely. The distress beacon had power for maybe 6 hours before the backup battery died. Tom activated the beacon and hoped someone would pick up the signal before the power ran out. The nearest shipping lane was 2 light years away. Even if a ship heard his call, rescue could take weeks. He gathered what supplies he could find: a field knife, water purification tablets, emergency rations for 5 days, and a basic medical kit. His survival training from his military days felt rusty, but the knowledge was still there. Find shelter, find water, find food, in that order. Though, cargo bay door had been damaged in the crash but still opened with manual force. Hot, humid air rushed into the ship. The smell of exotic flowers mixed with rotting vegetation. Somewhere in the distance, strange bird calls echoed through the forest. Tom stepped onto the soft jungle floor and looked around. Thick vines hung from trees that stretched up beyond sight. Colorful insects buzzed past his head. The canopy blocked most of the sunlight, leaving the ground level in green twilight. This was definitely not a dead rock like the mining worlds he usually visited. A stream gurgled nearby. Tom followed the sound and found clear water running over smooth stones. The scanner showed it was safe to drink after purification. He filled his water bottles and added the tablets. At least he would not die of thirst. As he knelt by the stream, Tom heard something move in the bushes behind him. He turned slowly, keeping his movements calm. His military instructors had always said sudden movements triggered predator instincts. Yellow eyes watched him from the shadows between the trees. Not just one pair, but many. Tom counted at least 8 sets of glowing orbs studying him from different positions. They had surrounded him without making a sound. The creatures stepped into the dim light filtering through the leaves. Tom's breath caught in his throat. They looked like wolves that had learned to walk upright. Gray fur covered lean, muscular bodies. Their hands ended in curved claws that could tear through steel. Strange blue patterns glowed along their arms, and faces like living tattoos. The largest one, clearly the pack leader, stood nearly 7 feet tall. Scars crossed its muzzle and chest. Its yellow eyes held an intelligence that made Tom's skin crawl. This was not some mindless beast. These creatures were thinking, planning hunters. Tom noticed something else that chilled his blood. The pack looked thin. Their ribs showed through their fur. The bright patterns on their skin had faded to dull flickers. These were not healthy. Predators at the peak of their power. These were desperate, starving animals. The leader made a sound like grinding stone. The others began to move, spreading out to cut off any escape route. Tom stood perfectly still. Running would only trigger their hunting instincts. Fighting would be suicide against 12 armed predators. But something felt wrong about their approach. Professional hunters should have already attacked. Instead, they seemed hesitant, uncertain. The leader kept looking toward the stream, then back at Tom. Its nostrils flared as it tested the air. Tom followed its gaze to the water. Fish swam in the clear current, their silver scales flashing in the filtered sunlight. His survival training kicked in. These predators were starving, but they were failing to catch the food right in front of them. They had forgotten how to hunt properly. Moving very slowly, Tom reached into his pocket and pulled out a length of wire from his repair kit. He bent it into a simple hook shape and tied it to a strand pulled from his jacket sleeve. The creatures watched with growing interest as he searched the stream bank for bait. A fat grub squirmed under a rotting log. Tom impaled it on his makeshift hook and cast the line into a deep pool where several fish circled. The pack pressed closer, but kept their distance. Their glowing patterns pulsed faster, showing excitement or stress. The line jerked. Tom set the hook with a quick motion and pulled a fish onto the bank. It flopped in the grass, scales catching the light. The pack leader made that grinding sound again, but softer this time. The others whined low in their throats. Tom looked at the fish, then at the starving pack surrounding him. He had two choices: try to keep his small catch and probably get torn apart by desperate predators, or make a gamble that might save his life. He picked up the fish and held it out toward the pack leader. The creature's eyes widened. It looked at the offering, then at Tom's face, then back at the fish. Very slowly it stepped forward and took the fish in its clawed hands. The leader sniffed the catch, then bit into it. The other pack members crowded around, making excited sounds. They had not eaten fresh meat in days, maybe weeks. Tom cast his line again and again. Each fish went to the hungry pack. As the afternoon wore on, the creatures relaxed. Their glowing patterns grew brighter as their bellies filled. They no longer watched Tom like prey. Now they watched him like something much more interesting, something that could teach them to survive. Fish bones lay scattered around the stream bank where the pack had feasted. Tom watched the creatures groom themselves with long pink tongues, their glowing patterns now bright and steady. The pack leader, whom Tom had started thinking of as Fang due to its prominent canine teeth, studied the human with curious yellow eyes. 3 days had passed since the crash. The distress beacon had died as expected, its final transmission lost in the vast emptiness of space. Tom had moved his camp closer to the stream, building a simple shelter from salvaged ship parts and fallen branches. The pack had not attacked him again, but they had not left either. They followed him everywhere. When he collected berries that his scanner marked as safe, they watched. When he built his shelter, they observed his every move. When he made fire using electrical components from his ship, they gathered in a circle and stared at the flames with something approaching wonder. Fire seemed completely alien to them. Tom realized they had never learned to control it despite their obvious intelligence. They possessed no tools beyond their natural claws and teeth. Everything about them suggested a species that had lost crucial knowledge. On the 4th morning, Tom woke to find the youngest pack member sitting by his dying fire. This one was smaller than the others, with brighter blue patterns and eyes that held more curiosity than wariness. Tom had started calling her Swiftclaw in his mind, watching how she moved with liquid grace. Swiftclaw pointed at the cold ashes, then at Tom. She made a questioning growl. Tom understood. She wanted to know how to make fire. Tom gathered dry tinder and showed her how to arrange it. He took 2 pieces of metal from his ship and demonstrated how to create sparks. Swiftclaw watched intently, her head tilted to one side. When flames caught in the tinder, she jerked back with a startled yelp, then crept forward again to study the fire more closely. The other pack members arrived as the fire grew. They formed their usual circle but stayed further back than Swiftclaw. Fang approached cautiously and sniffed at the smoke. His expression suggested he found it both fascinating and dangerous. Tom decided to push the lesson further. He took one of the remaining fish from yesterday's catch and held it over the flames, on a green stick. The pack watched as the raw meat slowly cooked, changing color and releasing new smells. When Tom bit into the cooked fish, several pack members made gagging sounds. They clearly found the idea disgusting. But Swiftclaw leaned forward, her nostrils flaring. Tom offered her a small piece. She sniffed it carefully, then took a tentative bite. Her eyes widened. She chewed slowly, then swallowed, and immediately reached for more. The cooked meat was easier to digest and released more energy than raw fish. Within minutes, she was eating cooked fish eagerly. The other pack members remained, skeptical until they saw how much more energetic Swiftclaw became after her meal. One by one, they tried the strange cooked food. Soon the entire pack was bringing Tom fish to cook over his fire. Communication remained difficult, but patterns emerged. The pack used different growls, clicks, and body language to convey meaning. Tom learned that short, high barks meant excitement. Deep rumbles indicated confusion or concern. The glowing patterns on their skin shifted color and intensity based on emotion. Over the following days, Tom expanded their lessons. He showed them how to identify which plants were edible by watching how he tested small amounts first. He demonstrated patience while fishing, waiting for the right moment to strike instead of splashing around and scaring away their prey. Most importantly, he taught them to work together in new ways. Their natural pack instincts were strong, but they had developed bad habits. They would all rush at prey simultaneously, getting in each other's way. Tom showed them how to coordinate their movements, with some pack members driving game toward others who waited in ambush. The breakthrough came during a hunting lesson. Tom had found tracks of a large ground bird near a clearing. Instead of letting the pack charge in randomly, he positioned them at specific locations around the area. Using hand signals and simple sounds, he coordinated their approach. When the bird appeared, the pack moved as Tom had taught them. 3 members drove it toward the tree line where 4 others waited. The remaining pack members blocked escape routes. The hunt succeeded with minimal effort and no injuries. Fang approached Tom after the kill, making the soft, grinding sound that seemed to indicate approval. He touched Tom's shoulder gently with one clawed hand, then did the same to each pack member. It appeared to be some kind of acceptance ritual. That night, as they shared cooked bird meat around the fire, Tom noticed changes in the pack's behavior. They groomed each other more, played more, and their glowing patterns had grown brighter and more complex. Better nutrition was restoring their health, but something more was happening too. Swiftclaw brought him interesting objects she found in the forest. Colorful stones, unusual plants, pretty feathers. Tom realized she was trying to communicate, to share discoveries with him the way pack members shared with each other. He was no longer just a teacher or a source of food. He was becoming part of their family. Tom began learning their hunting calls and pack signals. He discovered they had names for each other, complex sounds that identified individuals and their roles in the group. They gave him a name, too, a series of clicks and growls. That seemed to mean Firebringer or Clever Hands. The pack's territory covered several miles of jungle, but Tom noticed they avoided certain areas. When he asked through gestures and expressions, Fang led him to the edge of a rocky canyon. Strange sounds echoed from below, deep roars that made the pack nervous. Tom looked down into the canyon and saw massive shapes moving in the shadows, armored creatures the size of elephants, with rows of teeth like sword blades. These were the predators that had driven the pack from their best hunting grounds. Fang pointed to old scars on his chest and arms, then to the canyon. His message was clear. Those creatures had nearly killed him and had been pushing the pack toward starvation. The pack had been losing territory steadily, forced into the worst hunting areas where game was scarce. Tom studied the canyon and the creatures below. An idea began forming in his mind. The pack had learned to hunt more efficiently, to use tools to coordinate their attacks. They were stronger and smarter than when he had first met them. Maybe it was time to teach them that predators could become prey if the hunters were clever enough. The pack needed their territory back, and Tom was going to help them take it. But first they would need better weapons than claws and teeth. Tom smiled as he looked at the metal debris from his crashed ship. His engineering background was about to become very useful. Sparks flew as Tom hammered a piece of hull plating into shape against a large rock. The pack watched with fascination as he worked salvaged metal into crude but effective spear points. Swiftclaw held each finished blade up to the light, testing the sharpness with careful touches of her claw tips. 2 weeks had passed since Tom began teaching them advanced hunting techniques. The pack had grown visibly stronger and healthier. Their fur gleamed. Their glowing patterns pulsed with vibrant colors, and their movements had regained the fluid grace of apex predators. More importantly, they had begun to think like strategists, rather than desperate scavengers. Tom attached the metal points to straight branches using strips of fabric from his torn clothing and wire from the ship. The spears were crude, but they extended the pack's reach and gave them weapons that could punch through thick hide. Fang tested the balance of the first completed spear, hefting it in his clawed hands with natural skill. The lessons had expanded. Far beyond simple fishing, Tom showed them how to smoke meat over low fires, preserving their catches for days instead of having to hunt constantly. He taught them to identify medicinal plants that could treat wounds and sickness. Most revolutionary of all, he introduced them to the concept of farming. Near their camp, Tom had found a patch of ground where nutritious tubers grew wild. Instead of harvesting all of them immediately, he showed the pack how to replant the tops, leaving root systems intact to grow larger. Swiftclaw grasped the concept immediately, carefully tending their small garden with the devotion of a pack member protecting cubs. The other pack members struggled more with delayed gratification, but they learned. Tom emphasized that thinking ahead, planning for tomorrow instead of only focusing on today, was what separated intelligent hunters from mere animals. Communication had evolved dramatically. The pack taught Tom dozens of their words, while he introduced them to human concepts they had never encountered. They learned numbers by counting fish in the stream. They learned about maps when Tom drew pictures in the dirt showing their territory and hunting routes. Most impressive was their grasp of tactical thinking. Tom used small stones to represent pack members and prey, demonstrating complex hunting strategies on a flat section of ground. The pack learned to read his stone diagrams and suggest improvements to his plans. Fang proved especially gifted at strategy. He would move the stones around, showing Tom how to better position pack members for an ambush. His understanding of terrain and animal behavior impressed even Tom's military-trained mind. The real test came when they encountered a massive forest elk, a creature twice the size of Earth animals. Before meeting Tom, the pack would have charged it directly and probably suffered casualties. Now they implemented a coordinated assault. 4 pack members circled wide to get behind the elk. 3 others positioned themselves on the flanks. Tom and Swiftclaw approached from the front, making noise to hold the animal's attention. When the elk turned to face them, the rear group struck at its hamstrings with their new spears. The elk stumbled, unable to run. The flanking groups closed in from both sides while Tom and Swiftclaw retreated to safety. The entire hunt took less than 5 minutes and resulted in enough meat to feed the pack for 3 days. That evening, as they feasted around their fire, Tom noticed something remarkable happening. The pack was teaching each other his lessons without his involvement. Older members showed younger ones how to maintain their spears. Pack members who had mastered smoking techniques taught those who struggled with the timing. They were becoming a learning community, not just following Tom's instructions, but building on them, improving them, making the knowledge their own. Swiftclaw had become his unofficial translator and assistant teacher. Her quick mind grasped new concepts faster than the others, and she had a gift for explaining them in ways her packmates understood. Tom often found himself teaching her first, then watching her pass the lessons on to the group. She brought him new challenges, too. One morning she approached carrying a broken spear. The metal head snapped off during a hunt. Instead of asking Tom to fix it, she gestured toward his tools and made questioning sounds. She wanted to learn metalworking. Tom spent the afternoon teaching her basic blacksmithing, using salvaged ship parts and his portable torch. Her clawed hands were surprisingly dexterous, able to grip tools and manipulate metal with precision. By evening, she had repaired her spear and improved its design with better weight distribution. The pack's confidence grew with their skills. They began exploring areas of their territory they had abandoned when prey became scarce. Game was returning too, drawn by their improved management of the ecosystem. By not overhunting any single area, and by carefully tending their small farms, they were creating abundance instead of scarcity. But the canyon and its armored inhabitants remained off-limits. Tom observed the massive creatures from a safe distance, studying their habits and weaknesses. The pack called them Grimjaws, and for good reason. Their bite could crush trees, and their armored hides turned aside normal weapons. Yet Tom noticed things that gave him hope. The Grimjaws were solitary creatures, never cooperating even when hunting. They were also lazy, preferring to scavenge rather than actively hunt. Most importantly, they seemed to have poor eyesight, relying mainly on smell and hearing. Tom began developing a plan, but it would require the pack to trust him completely. They would need to work together with perfect coordination and absolute discipline. Any mistake could result in the entire pack being slaughtered. He started with small tests, night hunts where the pack had to move in complete silence, exercises where they had to follow complex multi-step plans without deviation, scenarios where some pack members had to retreat while others advanced, fighting every instinct that told them to stay together. The pack rose to every challenge. They had learned to think beyond their instincts, to value strategy over strength, patience over aggression. They trusted Tom's judgment even when his plans seemed impossible or dangerous. Fang approached him one evening as Tom studied his crude maps of the canyon. The pack leader looked at the drawings, then at Tom, then made the complex series of sounds that meant ready to fight. His glowing patterns pulsed with determination. Tom understood. The pack was no longer just surviving. They were ready to reclaim what had been taken from them. The students had become warriors, and tomorrow they would put everything they had learned to the ultimate test. The Grimjaws would discover that the starving, broken pack they had driven away no longer existed. In its place was something new, something that combined alien instincts with human ingenuity, something that would not be pushed around anymore. Dawn mist rose from the canyon floor as Tom and the pack took their positions. 3 weeks of preparation had led to this moment. Every detail had been planned, every contingency considered. The Grimjaws had ruled this territory through brute force for too long. Today would prove that intelligence could triumph over raw power. Tom crouched behind a boulder at the canyon's edge, his makeshift bow strung with metal-tipped arrows crafted from ship components. The pack had spread out according to their battle plan, invisible among the rocks and shadows. Only their faintly glowing patterns gave away their positions, and those were dimmed to barely visible flickers. Below, in the canyon, 4 Grimjaws lounged in the morning sun. Each creature was the size of a small building, their armored backs gleaming like black stone. Rows of teeth jutted from their massive jaws like broken swords. These were the monsters that had terrorized the pack, driving them from their ancestral hunting grounds. The largest Grimjaw lifted its head, testing the air with a forked tongue. Tom held his breath. The plan depended on perfect timing and absolute silence. One wrong move would turn strategy into slaughter. Tom drew back his bowstring and aimed at a pile of dead wood he had placed the night before. The arrow struck true, and sparks from its metal tip ignited the dry timber. Smoke began to rise, carrying the scent of burning wood toward the Grimjaws. The creatures stirred, confusion in their small red eyes. Fire was unknown in their underground domain. The smoke triggered their primitive fear instincts, making them nervous and disoriented. Phase 1 complete. Tom gave a hand signal that Swiftclaw relayed to the pack through subtle movements. 2 pack members emerged from hiding on the far side of the canyon, deliberately making noise as they scrambled over loose rocks. The Grimjaws turned toward the sound, their massive heads swinging like siege weapons. They saw the fleeing pack members and roared, a sound that shook dust from the canyon walls. All 4 monsters began moving, their clawed feet leaving gouges in the stone floor. This was the critical moment. In their hunger and arrogance, the Grimjaws did exactly what Tom had predicted. Instead of coordinating their pursuit, each creature tried to claim the prey for itself. They spread out, each following a separate path up the canyon walls. Perfect. Divide and conquer. Tom whistled softly, a sound the pack had learned to recognize as Begin Phase 2. Hidden pack members struck simultaneously at all 4 Grimjaws, but not with direct attacks. Instead, they targeted the loose rocks and boulders Tom had carefully positioned during his scouting trips. Spears wedged stones free. Coordinated pushing sent larger rocks tumbling. Within seconds, small avalanches cascaded down the canyon walls, striking the Grimjaws from multiple directions. The armored creatures shrugged off most of the impacts, but the falling stones achieved their true purpose. They separated the monsters further, driving each one into a different section of the canyon where the pack could deal with them individually. The smallest Grimjaw found itself alone in a narrow ravine. This was where Fang and 4 pack members had been waiting. They attacked not with suicidal frontal charges, but with the hit-and-run tactics Tom had taught them. Spears darted in to strike at the creature's eyes and joints, where armor was thinnest. When the Grimjaw turned to snap at one attacker, others struck from behind. The pack members never stayed in one place long enough to become targets, flowing around their massive opponent like water around a stone. Tom watched the coordinated assault with professional admiration. The pack had internalized every lesson, every principle of asymmetric warfare. They were not trying to overpower their enemy through strength. They were systematically dismantling it through superior tactics. The Grimjaw's roars grew more frustrated as blood ran from dozens of small wounds. None were fatal individually, but they were accumulating. More importantly, they were enraging the creature, making it careless and predictable. A second Grimjaw had become trapped in a dead-end gorge where 3 pack members waited with a special surprise. During their preparation, Tom had shown them how to create simple explosives using chemicals from his ship's emergency supplies. The devices were crude, but effective. The pack members retreated as the Grimjaw charged, leading it deeper into the trap. When the monster stepped on the concealed explosive, the blast sent rocks crashing down to block the gorge's only exit. The creature was now caged, though still dangerous. Tom turned his attention to the third battle, where Swiftclaw faced the greatest challenge. She had drawn the largest Grimjaw into a section of canyon Tom had prepared with hidden snares and pitfalls. But something had gone wrong. The creature had avoided most of the traps and cornered Swiftclaw against a sheer rock wall. She dodged, desperately as massive jaws snapped inches from her body. Her spear was gone, lost in the initial confrontation. She had only her natural claws against an enemy 10 times her size. Tom made a split-second decision. The plan was forgotten. His pack sister needed help. He leaped from his hiding place and sprinted along the canyon rim, searching for a way down. There, a narrow ledge that led to a precarious overhang directly above the trapped Swiftclaw. Tom had no weapons left except his emergency knife and his most dangerous tool, his mind. As he climbed down the treacherous ledge, he shouted at the Grimjaw in its own language, roaring challenges he had learned from listening to their territorial disputes. The massive head turned upward, small red eyes focusing on this new threat. Tom stood on the ledge directly above the creature's skull, a tiny figure against the canyon wall. The Grimjaw reared back to snap at him, exactly what Tom had hoped for. As the creature's head came up, its throat was exposed for a crucial second. Tom leaped from the ledge, his knife aimed at the soft spot beneath the Grimjaw's jaw. The blade sank deep into vulnerable flesh. The creature's own upward momentum drove the weapon deeper, severing vital arteries. Tom rolled aside as the Grimjaw collapsed, its lifeblood spreading across the canyon floor. Swiftclaw stared at him with wide eyes, her glowing patterns pulsing rapid colors that meant shock and gratitude. She had seen him risk his life to save hers, proving that his loyalty to the pack ran deeper than mere survival convenience. The remaining battles concluded swiftly. The trapped Grimjaw was finished by coordinated spear attacks through the rubble blocking its prison. The wounded creature in the narrow ravine finally succumbed to Fang's relentless assault, its armor no match for patient persistence. Silence fell over the canyon. 4 Grimjaws lay dead, their reign of terror ended. The pack gathered around their fallen enemies, their glowing patterns bright with triumph and exhaustion. But Tom noticed something more important than victory in their expressions. The pack looked different now, carried themselves with new confidence. They had faced their greatest fear and conquered it through teamwork and intelligence. They were no longer refugees hiding in the forest. They were the apex predators of their domain once again. Fang approached Tom and made the formal sound of pack acceptance, the deep rumble that meant brother. One by one, the other pack members repeated the gesture. Tom was no longer their teacher or their tool. He was family, proven in combat and sealed in blood. As they climbed out of the canyon to return to their territory, Swiftclaw walked beside Tom. She touched his arm gently and made the soft clicking sound that meant gratitude. Then she added something new, a complex series of tones Tom had never heard before. Later, he would learn it meant life debt, the pack's most sacred bond. She would remember his sacrifice forever, and her loyalty to him was now absolute. The pack had their hunting grounds back. But more than territory had been won today. Trust had been forged in battle, and the alliance between human and alien had become something unbreakable. The rescue ship Aurora's Dream descended through wispy clouds toward coordinates that should have held only wreckage and bones. Captain Reese had responded to an automated distress signal, though she expected to find little more than scrap metal after 3 months of silence. The jungle canopy parted around her ship's landing thrusters, revealing something impossible. A thriving settlement sprawled along the riverbank below. Cultivated fields stretched between the trees. Smoke rose from organized cooking fires. And, moving through it all, were figures that definitely were not human, working alongside one who unmistakably was. Tom Bradley looked up from the metal forge where he was teaching young pack members to craft tools. His hair had grown long and his skin was deeply tanned, but he was clearly alive and healthy. More than healthy, he looked content in a way that surprised the rescue team watching from their ship's viewport. The pack had grown in the months since the Grimjaw battle. New members had joined from other scattered survivor groups, drawn by stories of the territory where predators lived in abundance instead of starvation. Cubs born that spring played around the settlement under the watchful eyes of adult pack members. Swiftclaw approached Tom carrying a beautifully carved spear, her latest metalworking project. Her glowing patterns had evolved into complex designs that incorporated human symbols alongside traditional pack markings. She had become his chief assistant and translator, bridging the gap between species with natural skill. The settlement buzzed with activity. Pack members tended fish ponds Tom had helped them dig and stock. Others worked in workshops where they crafted increasingly sophisticated tools and weapons. The combination of human engineering principles and pack intuition had produced innovations neither species could have achieved alone. Fang led a group of younger males through combat training, their movements combining pack hunting instincts with tactical principles Tom had taught them. They practiced with blunted spears, learning to coordinate attacks and defensive formations. The pack had become more than survivors. They were warriors and builders, ready to defend their new way of life. Captain Reese activated her ship's external communicators. Tom Bradley, please respond. This is the rescue vessel Aurora's Dream. We received your distress signal 3 months ago. Tom looked up at the hovering ship, then at the pack members gathering around him. Curious yellow eyes studied the human vessel with interest rather than fear. The pack had learned that not all new things were threats. Some brought opportunities. "I hear you, Aurora's Dream," Tom replied into his salvaged communicator. "Permission to land granted, but please power down your weapon systems. My friends here get nervous around armed spacecraft." The rescue team exchanged glances. Friends? The mission briefing had said nothing about intelligent alien life on this planet. The ship landed in a clearing the pack had prepared for exactly this purpose. Tom had always known rescue would come eventually. The question was what he would do when it arrived. Captain Reese emerged from the ship with her medical officer and chief of security. They approached the settlement with weapons holstered but hands ready. What they found challenged every assumption about first contact protocols. The pack members showed no hostility toward the new humans. Instead, they demonstrated curiosity, offering samples of their cooked food and crafted goods. Their body language, while alien, clearly conveyed peaceful intentions. "Mr. Bradley," Captain Reese began, "we've been searching for you for months. Are you injured? Are these creatures holding you prisoner?" Tom laughed, a sound that made several pack members join in with their equivalent of laughter, a chattering bark-like sound. "Quite the opposite, Captain. They saved my life, and I've been returning the favor by sharing a few survival techniques." Swiftclaw approached carrying a translation device Tom had cobbled together from ship components. It converted pack vocalizations into synthesized human speech, though the translation was still rough. "Human friends welcome," the device said, in response to her greeting. "Pack offers food sharing and safe rest." The medical officer ran his scanner over Tom and found him in excellent health. Better than excellent, actually. His muscle tone had improved significantly, and all his vital signs showed remarkable fitness for someone who had been stranded in an alien wilderness. "Tom," Captain Reese said carefully, "we're here to take you home. Your insurance company hired us to mount this rescue operation. We have space on board and can depart immediately." Tom nodded slowly. He had expected this moment, prepared for it. But the reality of choosing between worlds still hit him hard. Around the settlement, pack members continued their daily routines, but Tom noticed they were watching him, not with desperation or possessiveness, but with quiet understanding. They knew what the ship meant. They also knew what his choice would cost him either way. "Captain, I appreciate you coming all this way, but I need to ask you something. What do you see when you look at this place?" Reese studied the settlement with professional eyes. "I see an organized community, advanced tool use, agriculture, social structure, signs of intelligence and cooperation." Her expression grew thoughtful. "This is a first contact situation, isn't it?" "It's more than that," Tom replied. "It's a successful integration. These people were dying when I crashed here, starving, losing their territory, forgetting their own survival skills. Now look at them." Captain Reese watched pack members work with obvious skill and purpose. Cubs played safely while adults worked. The entire settlement hummed with productive energy. "You taught them all this?" "We taught each other," Tom corrected. "I showed them some human techniques, but they adapted them, improved them, made them their own. They've shown me things about cooperation and family that humans could learn from. Fang approached the group, his movements careful and non-threatening. He spoke in the pack language, and Swiftclaw translated through her device. Pack leader says human friend Tom is family heart of pack. His choice to make, but pack will understand any decision. Tom felt the weight of that statement. The pack had given him unconditional acceptance, and now they were giving him unconditional freedom. They would not try to hold him through guilt or emotional manipulation. "There's something else you should know, Captain," Tom continued. "This isn't just a settlement. It's a model for coexistence. What we've built here could change how humans and aliens interact throughout the galaxy." The security chief stepped forward. "With respect, Bradley, you're one man who's been isolated for months. You might not be thinking clearly about the implications." Swiftclaw's patterns flared brighter, a sign of irritation Tom recognized. She understood more human speech than her translator could handle, and she did not appreciate the suggestion that Tom was mentally compromised. "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years," Tom said firmly. "I was a cargo hauler, flying alone between dead mining worlds, no family, no real purpose. Here, I'm part of something bigger. I'm helping two species learn from each other." Captain Reese studied the alien-human settlement with growing understanding. "You want to stay. I want to do more than stay. I want to help this become something permanent. Other human ships will come eventually. When they do, this place could be the first embassy between our species, a place where humans and pack can trade, learn, and build trust." The medical officer looked skeptical. "The authorities will want extensive studies before any official contact is authorized. This could take years." "Then we'll wait," Tom said simply. "The pack is patient. They understand long-term thinking now. We'll build something here that's too valuable to ignore." Captain Reese made a decision that would later be cited in first contact protocols. "Tom, I'm going to offer you a choice. Come with us now, and we'll report this discovery to the proper authorities. Or stay here, and we'll carry a message to the colonial administration about establishing formal diplomatic contact." Tom looked around at the pack members who had become his family. Swiftclaw watched him with trusting eyes, cubs who had learned to call him Uncle Tom, in their language played nearby. Fang stood ready to support whatever choice Tom made. "I'm staying," Tom said, "but I have some requests. First, send regular supply ships. We need communication equipment, medical supplies, and trade goods. Second, spread the word about what we've accomplished here. Let other humans know that peaceful coexistence is possible." Captain Reese nodded. "I'll make sure the right people hear about this. What should I tell your insurance company?" Tom grinned. "Tell them their policy just helped establish the first successful human-alien colony in known space. I think that's worth a few credits." 3 hours later, the Aurora's Dream lifted off carrying messages that would change galactic history. Tom watched it disappear into the sky, then turned back to his real home. Swiftclaw approached him, her translation device ready. "Tom Packbrother has no regret sadness for staying choice?" "No regrets," Tom said, switching to the pack language he had learned. "Family is where heart chooses to be." The pack erupted in celebratory sounds. Tom was truly one of them now, having chosen their world over his own species. But more than that, he had chosen to be the bridge between worlds, the translator who would help two very different peoples understand each other. Years later, when the first official diplomatic mission arrived, they found a thriving colony where humans and pack worked side by side. Children of both species played together, learning each other's languages and customs. Trade agreements had been established. Cultural exchange programs flourished. Tom Bradley, former cargo hauler turned ambassador, had kept his promise. He had taken a pack of starving predators and helped them build a civilization. In return, they had given him something he had never known he was missing, a place where he truly belonged. The hungry pack had learned to fish, hunt, and cook, but, more importantly, they had learned to dream of a future where no one had to go hungry again. And at the center of it all was the human who had taught them that survival was not enough. Sometimes, if you were clever and patient and willing to work together, you could build something that would last forever.